I love that song. It has a great message. My name is Dr. Yearsley. I'm a behavioral health doctor and a licensed clinician, and I'm here today to talk to you about imposter syndrome. You know, all over the internet is this concept of imposter syndrome. And I think that there's some merit in terms of highlighting the way that we might feel, especially as women and sometimes men. But I also think that you need to be set straight about the mental health implications of this pop psychology term. Okay, here's the deets on imposter syndrome. First of all, it is not a clinical diagnosis, okay? The word syndrome is actually misleading, and I think it can do some damage. So I wanted to weigh in on imposter syndrome and set the record straight. Last time. In 1978, Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes decided to publish an article. It was one article that was published in Psychotherapy, Theory, Research, and Practice Journal. Okay, and this article was done with white female executives or business leaders about their feelings concerning how they feel about their job, how they are performing with their job. And there were some interesting revelations about how they felt in terms of their characteristics, how well they were performing their job, and maybe some of the insecurities that they felt about that work. And frankly, in a lot of ways, I can relate to what they're saying because I think some of these things are really normal for some of us in terms of how we feel regarding something new, something that stretches us, something that could be a little bit of a risk too. And so this is a video all about imposter syndrome because I want you to know the truth about really what this is. Again, this is not a clinical diagnosis. You're not going to find it in the DSM-5, all right? So the word syndrome, well, it kind of gives me a little bit of irritation. Actually, it gives me a lot of irritation. I hate pop psychology terms that present themselves as medical diagnoses that really don't exist. So let's be careful about what we're reading on social media, all right? And I wanted to let you know that there are some signs and symptoms that actually have merit in terms of this discussion, and I'm gonna present them to you today. So it is really cold in my basement, and I feel like I'm shivering all at the same time doing this video. It's crazy. Look, whether you call this imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome, which I think can be misleading, all right, I've already mentioned that. Really what you need to understand is that it's marked by this sense of persistent doubt about your abilities and also being exposed as a fraud. So meaning you don't really know enough to do this job. You don't really know enough to be put in a position of authority or to be put in a position of responsibility that you're in. And even though the reality is that you might be very, very successful at what you're doing, we still don't feel successful. We still feel that inherent doubt and, may I say, fear about the fact that we're going to fail. So that imposter complex is really about doubting your competence in the position that you're in. So there's a few reasons why we can feel imposterism. And I think that these are important to bring up because sometimes when we're in a position of authority or we're in a position where we're supervising other people or it's a high stress, high performance job, we really can have some of these insecurities bubble up. First of all, I want you to know that that's normal. I mean, isn't it normal? And I would say that it's not always a bad thing to feel like you're stretching yourself, you're challenging yourself. You know, sometimes we need to change and shift our thinking and our framework so that we're not always in a place of complacency. And in some people, it can cause these feelings of depression and anxiety and self-worth challenges where we feel like we don't even want to try. Okay, so what can cause imposter syndrome? Number one, I'm going to say family environment. Absolutely, nature versus nurture. Look, sometimes we're born with certain personality characteristics, and then by virtue of the environment that we're raised in, it can either bring out the positive in us Or it can bring out the negative in us. That's called the nurture, okay? And don't make any mistakes. When it comes to our mental health, our environment matters in terms of how we view ourselves and how we view the world around us. So the next one could be racism and sexism, which is alive and well in American culture and across the globe. And it comes in many different forms, okay? And I would say that vulnerable and minority groups in general probably feel a larger extent of this kind of pressure and this kind of judgment than other populations. So various forms of oppression, such as racism and sexism, can affect how people of color and women experience imposter feelings. And I would argue that systematic inequalities for both men and women can contribute to this feeling of imposterism that we feel out in the workforce. So among just about every group, there probably, if you look back through history, have been episodes of intergenerational trauma in different forms, but definitely they are there if you look and you ask about the anthologies of people and their family history. I want to say here that some of the feelings of imposterism might be subconscious, meaning you're not even aware that these things are bubbling up and impacting how you feel. So making sure that you are really asking yourself the deep questions, and sometimes obtaining professional help can help you unravel or peel back that onion in terms of the layers that are contributing to these feelings of, I'm not good enough. I'm a fraud. I'm afraid of being found out by other people, that I'm really not as good or I'm really not as worthy as they think I am. Okay, another one that I think is really important to bring up in terms of imposterism is this idea of perfectionism. So first of all, I want you to know that there is no such thing as perfect. It just doesn't even exist. The only place that it exists is on social media and in Hollywood. That's it, because we are able to edit it. We're able to curate it. We're able to create this picture of fantasy. That's all perfectionism is. It's really not real. And so in a real world, what we're striving for is unattainable, and we're always going to fall short of that, which really is probably fueling these feelings of imposterism. You know what? If I can't get to this level, then I'm never going to be good enough. You know what I'm saying? I felt that too. There's a lot of times in my career where I felt like, if I ever get to this point, then I'm going to feel good enough. Or if I ever get to this point, or I do this, or accomplish that, then I'm going to be worthy of the praise that's coming my way, or the praise that I would like to receive in terms of my career. And frankly, it's just not true. The truth is that the opposite of perfectionism is feeling like you're enough. That's the opposite. All of us bring different things to the table. We bring different talents, skills, abilities, backgrounds, histories. And by the way, those differences relate differently, I've said that word a lot, to different people. There it goes again. All right? So the things that I bring to the table aren't going to relate to everybody in the audience, but they're going to relate to a few people in ways that other things are not. And so I want you to think about shifting your value to what you do best and what you bring to the table in the best possible way. Okay, another one that I think is important to bring up is if you are a person that is only validated by external forms of validation, meaning you only feel good if people on the outside, the people in your environment, are telling you you're good. It's like mutual approbation, right? If I am seeking the accolades of man and that's where I'm getting my validation, that's the only time I feel like I'm worthy. That can be imposterism. Look, the reality is that you're not always going to have accolades from people around you. In fact, you can have criticism. You can experience competition. You can experience this feeling of less than. And so really what we need to do is find a way for internal validation. meaning I have a sense of pride. I have a sense of competency. I have a sense of, you know what? If I make a few mistakes, that's okay. That's human. That's the part of the human experience. And so the need for external validation becomes less and less, and the ability to rely on your own sense of self-worth becomes stronger. Also, people who are linked to this idea that my success is only through luck. Look, I don't know of a lot of people, actually I don't know of any people in life that they can contribute all of their successes, all of their wins, all of their competencies to luck. This idea that luck is the reason for all of our success seems really dangerous to me. Because what it does is it takes away our own personal accountability and frankly, all the hard work that you're putting into being successful. Look, to be successful in this world, you have to hustle. You have to work, you have to put in effort, and you have to make sacrifices. You also, in my opinion, have to put out positive energy. I really am one of those people that believes if you put out positive energy, you're going to get positive energy in return. Imposter feelings can also hold you back. So it can keep you from taking that next step. It can keep you from taking calculated risks that might really help your career. It can keep you from doing things that are outside your comfort zone. Honestly, this is a big fat lie. I want you to understand that. Bunch of poppycock. It really, really is. Because the way that we grow is by stepping into what's uncomfortable. So those feelings of fraud can impact us socially, educationally, and occupationally. And I'm going to throw in there also with our relationships. Another word that I use for imposterism is false fronting. And that is we're wearing a mask, right? We're putting on a false face to the world because what's really going on underneath, we're ashamed of. We don't want people to know the truth about how we really feel and what's really going on. That, my friends, is about fraud. It's about feelings of insecurity. It can also be related to trauma. Now, the next one I want to talk about is these increases that we see in HR or human resource data about burnout and stress. These feelings of imposterism or fraudulent behavior or not feeling like we measure up to maybe what our company expectations are, this can absolutely lead to burnout. Why? Because you're going to go above and beyond and kill yourself to try to meet those expectations because you don't feel like you're doing a good enough job. Now, what are some of the things that you can do? You definitely can seek professional help because you're going to need somebody neutral to point out your thinking errors. This is not something that I feel like most people are able to do on their own. They really do need a trusted individual on the outside saying, well, I want you to think about this because it's hard to see when you're in it. Next, I want you to surround yourself with positive role models and mentors. Find somebody that can help you to move forward and move past some of these things that are roadblocks in your life. They can be really helpful and positive in terms of giving you the courage and the motivation to do something different. I also want you to remember not to compare yourself to other people. Look, that is kind of the human condition. We compare ourselves in a lot of different ways. And by the way, social media doesn't help with that. We see these ideas of perfectionism, which is really imposterism at its best, right? It's not like we're posting the worst of the worst on the internet. We don't do that. We've got filters, we've got editing, we've got, careers made out of public relations, which is only presenting the best side or the best image of ourselves. And so this is an area where if you can get away from competition and you can actually function in a place of reality, I think it's going to help you. I also think that we've got to tweak the way that we're speaking to ourselves. You probably don't even realize how many negative things you say to yourself if you're a person that struggles with imposterism. So with the help of a therapist or some other mentor, we can sort of move past some of this negative cognitive distortion. That's a fancy way of saying that we're saying negative things to ourselves and we're believing it. Okay, that's what that means. But there are therapeutic modalities that can help with this. And one of those is cognitive behavioral therapy. I want you to check into it because it really can bring awareness and also give you tools about how to change the way that we're talking to ourselves. If we feel like we're a fraud, how are we supposed to move past that? Sitting with ourselves. I just don't think it's possible, folks. It definitely hasn't been possible for me. What I've had to do is reach out to neutral individuals that are positive role models and kind of talk through, look, these are the feelings that I'm feeling. Is this real or is this just me? In those moments, I have found support and courage to step a little further. And I think that's the key with imposterism, is stepping out of those feelings of fraud and stepping into the feelings of empowerment. Thank you for watching this video, and thanks for subscribing and liking this video as well. I really do think that we're trying to grow this mental health community in a place that is positive. Some of the comments that I've received from you have been really great feedback, and I appreciate that. If there's any additional ideas that you have for videos, let me know down below. I definitely am open to creating content that's important to you.